Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Joseph Jute, Chief Technology Officer at Net Solutions. I've spent decades helping brands build digital experiences. And I'm happy to have Sanjaya Abesinghe. He's the CTO of OptiSolve and brings over 2 decades of experience in driving digital transformation. From building smart SaaS tools to making sure everything is secure and compliant, Sanjaya knows how to connect tech with real business impact. He has certifications from MIT, Harvard, and Vanderbilt, and he is betting big on AI. Sanjaya, welcome to the webinar.
Good afternoon, Joseph. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. On to today's topic. One of the common struggles of field service representatives is to find the right answer in the middle of a customer conversation. They had to flip through manuals or call someone at the office to find the right product to recommend to the customer. Sanjaya's team has solved exactly this particular problem with a thoughtful blend of AI, UX, and business process transformation. Instead of digging through documents or guessing products to recommend, reps can now snap a photo and ask the app what solution fits the best. The AI powered app will comb through all technical data using RAG pipeline and suggest the most relevant products instantaneously. Today, we will unpack how the system was built, the challenges faced along the way, and what it tells about the future of B2B sales enablement. I'm sure you will find it insightful. Hi, Sanjay. Let's start with the genesis. How did this Gen AI initiative begin, and what signaled the time was right?
Good question. I don't think the time is right for anything in the SaaS world. I think we didn't get into Gen AI because it was trendy last year. We get into the AI project somewhere around September last year. I think it's too old now. Talk about 6 months ago. What happened 6 months ago? Uh, we did this because we saw our customers facing a real world challenges in their operations. We saw customers and sales reps spending numerous hours, digging through product manuals, you call it, the safety data sheets, vital knowledge. They should have simple, by not going through that process, they spent enormous amount of time to find a simple answer. So everyone has a different way of finding information, which slows down the communication. So, and also it brings the inconsistency. The way you answer the question might not be the same way that I answer. That was our first use case. Giving how can we give a sales rep verified answers in an instance in the field. But when we're building it, what really confirmed we are into something really big. Last year we became a partner and a reseller for one of the telematics provider called GitHub. And our own team was overwhelmed with the new terminology, the systems and the processes. It's a lot of jargons. So instead of going through a long training process, so we trained our AI model with the knowledge that we had, and then we are simply asking a question, solves a lot of problem that team is going through. So that was a moment, we realized that we are not just building a one-off tool. We had built a domain adaptable platform that can serve different personas. So that was a moment we thought, we are doing something big.
Good, Sanjay. Even though you are a CTO, you nailed this particular thing that we are not going to put in a tech because it's a tech, but we are going to solve a particular problem the customers are facing. And Sanjay, now that a CTO and a CTO are talking, we should talk about architecture, technology, and the background, whatever is happening at the back. So, can you walk me through what's the architecture of this particular application? How are the pipelines set up? So, you talked about the documents being fed. So, how is that done? And what's the architecture? So, basically, the documents are on the input side. At the output, the sales guys are seeing whatever the answers for their questions are. So how does this end up at here? So can you walk me through that?
Yeah, great question. Before I answer that, I want to let you know, you mentioned about the, talk about the customer. I think both of us are more customer-oriented CTOs, I would say. We talk about the customer journey every day.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, painful points. And then I think, but I just want to bring that one up. So I think, you asked me about how did we build the technology. I think Walt, our, we call OptiSolve intelligence. There are multiple names out there we are trying with. We build on a RAG pipeline. We use the RAG architecture with OpenAI GPT-4 and the vector database. Right now, we use the OpenAI file search to extract embeddings from enterprise documents. It can be a PDF file, it can be an Excel file, it can be a product sheet, and we store in our the custom built internal storage. And then when the user asks a question, AI will retrieve the most relevant chunks, inject them into the structured prompt, and then submit to the OpenAI, which will give the verifiable answers. Very important, I said verifiable answers. It's all the model is always grounded to the source. Remember, what we have built is not getting the information from the internet. It's your own data. We train the model based on your own data. Customer can provide their own SOPs, the documents, so we vetted it. So we train the model based on that data. So we know the answers that we get is from their own data. And then the assistant that you also we built, governed by a long system prompt. You said to be little tech, so I'm trying to be little techie. So we build a long system prompt, controls the tone of the answers, structure, and the risk, essentially acting as a blueprint for how the model is going to respond to your answers and behave. We also layered the prompt filters, output confidence checks and user level context to ensure that response remain consistent uh, in different personas. We are not 100% successful. That's how the AI world works. But at least I think the most important thing to me is, have we ticked the boxes we put in place uh, in order to make sure that we are getting the right output. As we scale, we are also trying to incorporate industry standard uh, to our pipeline. As example, the ETL framework, we are planning to work with unstructured like companies and for the handle diverse of type of document, and then the vector databases like Pinecone and the Databrick, if that makes
Good.
sense.
Thanks, Sanjay. I want to double down on a couple of things that you talked about. But before we go into that, so this is for the field sales agents. So can you talk about how was the life before this particular app? And now that this app is in their hands, how does that workflow look like? How does their world look like with this particular app?
Great question. I think, I like to segue, you're absolutely right. When we initially have our use case back in September last year, we built something for the sales rep in my mind. That was our first use case, top of the line, this is what we are attacking. But what we quickly realized was we are not building for a specific persona. We build an engine that can adapt to the sales reps, the employees, you call it, the front end stuff. So that's what we have built. But I will answer your question about, how does this platform, we call it. Remember at the beginning I said is we build something domain adaptable, like it can adapt to any domain. So if we take the domain of sales representatives, before as I mentioned before, sales rep, when they want to go to a meeting, they juggle through the presentation files, they juggle through the documents, emails, and then there's no context where to get it. And then when they've been asked a question, they pick up the uh, phone for the SME, the subject matter expert, and then based on that, it took too long. I mean, for me, going into the customer side, even the customer side of it, flip side of a sales rep, when they want to find some answers, they always want to go to the subject matter expert. Sometimes it's available, sometimes not. So the going back to the sales rep persona, their life before this app is, I would say, finding the information was a struggle. Let me put it that way. I think they are very big subject matter experts, but sometimes when they struggle to find the information, they struggle in their role itself. It's not because of them, it's how the information is accessible for them. And then, what this enablement do is, what this app we call it to do is, simply, based on their data, we train the model. And then, when they struggle with the information, they don't need to go to the Google Drive anymore. They don't need to search for the email anymore. They don't need to call the subject matter expert anymore. The data you just asked, how would I clean a water stain on the wall? I mean, the idea is all about, people are so powerful, in my opinion, when they have the information readily available for them, when they need it. Very important, when they need it. So that's what, we did. And then what was before is that it took maybe hour, 2 hours for them to find it. Now the information available to them within a seconds.
Yeah. So I think that's something that we are seeing, right? I mean, fiddling with so many of these particular documents and so on and so forth. But then, when a technology works, when a solution works, it looks like a magic. So you ask some question, it is not only showing the product that they are looking, but it is also showing some of the related products. So the sales people can, look at the recommendations and they can. So it is not just only tech. You can infuse the human aspect into it as well, and then they can have a conversation with the customer. Sanjay, when we talked about the technology, you touched upon uh, the probabilistic nature of this particular application. Gen AI, so it is probabilistic, it is not deterministic. It is very different from how apps are being built so far. So, as a technologist, I would code, I can test it out. Whether I test it 6 in the morning, 10 in the night, whether I test it, you test it, somebody else tests it, the answers are the same. But now it is probabilistic in nature, which means I really can't say whether the answer it is giving is the right one or not, whether that will be the thing that will always be the case. So, how do you handle this particular case of how do we test this probabilistic Gen AI applications?
That's a great question. I think you and I had many conversation about when we start the project. I think, in my opinion, when you lay out your structure of the team, the QA people, the quality assurance people are the last one to be recognized, and then the first one to get blamed. You know what I mean, right? So you and I had multiple conversation on that. But you know what? I think before I answer the question, I want the audience to understand, testing a generative AI application is technically not realistic unless you open up your creativity.
Hmm.
I think, Joseph, I think I had a conversation with you. You and I had a very good go back and forth. I said, you're not doing the right thing. But, whole idea is, I want everyone to understand that there's no binary here. There's no true or false. You need to work within a LLM. If you build something on closed door LLM, you don't know what the response are going to be, right? So let me put it this way: unlike a rule-based software, where the outputs are deterministic, generative AI responses are very depending on the phrasing, the way you ask, the context is different, the confidence is different. So we built a new approach. I wouldn't say we built it, with the communication. We came up with it's not as something native to us, but we explored the avenue, right? First, we used the Gen AI itself to test our data. So the first what we did was, we got the subject matter expert. He has about 40 years of experience on this space, the products and then cleaning products and how they train the sales reps and whatnot. So we asked a simple question, Mr. We call it a Jim. Okay, so we call it a Jim. So Jim, give me 100 questions, in your opinion, that you want to test whether our model is working. So he gave 100 questions. He gave 100 answers. Those are very specific answers. I would say, last year September that I lost half of my hair because I was figuring it out what these are, how I'm going to get this one to solve this answer. I think the whole idea, I wanted to put the human in the loop, right? So first thing, day one, put the human in the loop. You're the expert, so you give me. So then once we get that, we feed those information to multiple models. We use ChatGPT, we use Gemini, and we use Claude. The reason is I wasn't confident enough that which one is the best, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not about the which one is the best, which one is give me some more close answer that Jim gave it to me without even doing any modification. Then we didn't just look for exact matches, as you know, it's very difficult to do, and we defined acceptable answer ranges. We take a question and we say 1 to 5. One is being the worst, you don't know anything about what I'm talking about. 5 means you did a pretty good job, and then we get that, and we got the AI to answer 100 questions, and then we send it to back to the expert, subject matter expert. Okay, here's what the question is being, and here's the answer that you gave it to me. Here's the AI given to me. So going through that exercise, that open up a hybrid model that we never even thought about. The hybrid model is that yes, you did the binary check on the software is working, all that, but getting the answers, we start building the question based on the personas. So the QA team was educated on, okay, you do your binary checks, fine. But when you come to the responses, these are the things that you need to do. You need to create in a persona. Joseph, I think you and I had a multiple conversation on it. I think you had a very valid points as well. What are the challenges, what are the things that you throw at me, Sanjay, this is not realistic, the team is not understanding that, what was, you and I had multiple conversation on it. I think to answer, I segue a little bit, but I think to answer your question, what we did was we kept our binary checklist intact, no changes. You go, you test it, you make sure everything works. But when it comes to Gen AI responses, we ask them to be more open-minded. It's about your creativity. Ask the question, instead of asking the question, how should I clean my dust mop? How should I clean my dust mop? I am in a sales rep. Can you tell me how to clean my dust mop? Because a sales rep's persona should be not cleaning the dust mop, sell a new dust mop. You know what I mean? So this is what the creativity came into play. So we didn't leave away the standards QA process. So we enabled our QA team to be in a hybrid model with a subject matter expert, and the results were very fast, iterative, and then that's how we found out. And there's no one fit all for the QA for the generative AI testing, if that makes
Okay.
sense to you.
Absolutely. Just for the audience, please keep your questions coming in. I will post those questions to Sanjaya and we'll discuss those questions as well. Sanjaya, going back to your answer, I think the hybrid model is how we need to think about it. At least at this point in time, we haven't seen all of the Gen AI applications coming in. So at this particular point in time, we need to move slowly towards the new emerging patterns of testing applications, which means it has to be a hybrid model. As you have said, bring in some of the human in the loop, the expert in the loop, find out what are all the ways that it is going to be tested, or the answers will come in and go and test likewise with the QA. Sanjay, you kept talking about you need to be creative. I want to double down on that, double click on that particular thing. Is that one thing that I've seen you do is you yourself use this application multiple times, even before it became whatever it is now. And as you rightly said, 6 months is way too much of a, it's a decade in a Gen AI era. So how should product owners, CTOs, QAs, tech people, how should they develop this creativity while using a new technology? So can you give me a couple of examples how you developed creativity with this particular application, and how did you become familiar with this particular technology as it was emerging?
That's a great question. I think, as any tech leader like yourself and, myself, I think, I'm not a person to go and tell people what to do unless I know half of it. So the whole idea is to be creative. I wanted to, because I think I learned in a generative AI, it's not the AI itself that's the problem, it's a prompt engineering side of the problem. People, the way you asked the question is different and then the way I asked. So I wanted to be specialized in that area. So, so what I did was so you asked me how I start developing this area. So I wanted to, when the project started, when we started it, and while we are working with the technical architect so I tried to be specializing in the prompt engineering side because I thought that's the one that's going to drive this project forward. So once I built that, then I was confident enough to, come up with a cultural change within the team, within the team. So saying that, yes, we need to do this, but this is how we should be doing, and these are the reasoning on it. So I think, when you're working with the, highly talented tech force, technical architect, everybody's mindset is different. So it's, there's, we call it, there's so many tools available. What tools to use, even our own team. So I make sure that, we test on one system, we put only one AI system at their forefront, because then people doesn't have to go different ways, right? So the creativity comes in, when you start learning about the system, going to the QA people and doing that, we work in a collaboration way, work with the technical architect and our BA and say, can we do this testing? Can we do this, the creativity? I think it's all about, as I mentioned in my previous conversation just a few minutes ago, I think it's about how you think you want the users to respond. And then one of the thing I ask the application we're building, I'm an 8-year-old kid. I tell me how to clean the washroom. It's not that I wish my son goes and clean the washroom every day, but he does it. But the whole idea is to tell the team, like, you need to be creative. You do not know who are the users or their language or their education level, whatnot, using this system, right? So the building that culture was, pretty challenging because it's coming from a different angle. So I think, let me give you a little bit of some relative example. When I build it, I spend days, nights, and probably holidays as well building a right system prompt for application to respond. One persona. I was so happy, and the team, say done, okay, everything is responding properly, and then, perfect. Then I switch the persona. It's a complete complete disaster. Like, the thing is, it tells me something that I'm not expecting. I think the whole idea is, I didn't give up. So the creativity not didn't end because I failed, right? So I think my recommendation is that when you know what you're working on, just think outside the box. So that's my wallpaper in my computer as well. Think outside the box. That's the only thing I can give it to you.
So Sanjay, I want to again, push you a little more on that, because this is, in my opinion, very critical if you're talking about developing application in a newer technology. Did you limit yourself to attending courses and learning about prompts and writing system prompts? All of that is fine, but did you use this technology outside of your, the way that you're using in your corporate and job and all of those kinds of stuff? So how did you become, you yourself, how did you become very familiar with this particular application or technology on a larger scale?
I, no, I think you know the story. You want me to tell the story, which is I'm glad.
Absolutely.
Uh, I think that's a great question. I think this is also I'm telling my team. Always always use these tools to your personal life. If
Mhm.
possible, where applicable, right? So one of the thing I can tell, one night I was juggling with an emergency call with your team, at I don't know, maybe 10 p.m. my time, and my wife, my wife was at work, and then I had to, okay, this is sound like I'm a very bad parent, but excuse me for this. Is not. I'm a very good dad. I think so. Hopefully my wife is not hearing it. I had to put my 3-year-old to bed alone, and usually, this take about 30 to 45 minutes of storytelling, lullabies, and then full routine. But this day I was so busy, I had to work with the team. So you know what, I opened ChatGPT and I wrote a prompt based on my son's interest, and then craft a soft background music, and then get ChatGPT to tell a story for my son. Surprisingly, with the calming music and the story that it was telling, my son was asleep in 15 minutes. I think that's always, I always trying to use this technology. That's not about the automation piece. It was about the creating a moment when I could not fulfill as a parent. you know that hit hard. Like, this is where the last year, this is where I think, how can I bring this personal moment? It's not a use case I'm building for. How can I take this personal moment to make something different in the industry, hopefully? So that was one of the moment. And the other one is, it is frustrating to ask, my elder son, he's going to the piano lessons, and then this happened last week technically, and then he said, Dad, I think I'm playing the right notes, but I don't know whether it's the right tone or not, because he's going to an exam tomorrow. And then my wife was not at home, so I don't know. So I said, how can I help him? I cannot call the teacher. And then I opened the Gemini live app. I I take a picture of his notes. I think this is the note that you need to do. But the only thing is, picture wouldn't do it, because picture wouldn't know what he's playing. So Gemini live up and then stream it. And then, perfectly at that moment, I could get the help. Otherwise, I would not have access to. So those are the, two real life cases I think I can share with you.
Thank you, Sanjaya. The reason why I want to bring that out is, unless otherwise, we ourselves, the people who are driving this kind of a transformation, unless otherwise we are fully immersed into these kinds of technologies, I don't think we can bring out the best of that particular technology outside. And we will not be able to push or nudge our team members into using that particular technology. And as you rightly said, this is an emerging technology. There is no kind of, oh, this problem is solved by somebody, go read that particular thing and then do it. Whatever you read today, it is obsolete tomorrow,
Yeah.
especially in Gen AI, right? So, which means you yourself have to be immersed. And unless otherwise you are using it on a daily basis, you will not be able to do it. So which is fantastic. Uh, One of the questions that has come in is, and I want to touch upon that, the guardrails and the how do you handle the accuracy. So, and ChatGPT is used to hallucination. So, how did you put out the guardrails? How did you come up with saying, okay, your answer has to be within this particular documents that I'm giving you, not outside? And I'm sure there are other guardrails as well. So I want to talk a little more about that guardrails and how do you handle that hallucination? How do you ensure that the answers are within the documents that was fed into it? So how did you do that, Sanjay?
That's a great question. I mean, initially, I was even struggling to find the answer for that particular question, because hallucination is one of the worst thing in Gen AI itself. It's really difficult to detect. I think we came up with the we came for that particular guardrails into put into play. So basically, we came up with something called DRAT. So detect. The first thing is, identify the hallucination point, the prompts drifting. So what we do, just let me take a step back. So basically what we do in general, so when our application prompts something or gives something, we log it. Technically, entire chat history is being logged. And then the user has an ability to either rate it, say this is not good, this is I don't like it. So basically, we have the ability to detect, from the user perspective, whether the answers that are coming in within that. And also, we try to link all this data that are coming in for the document sources. So basically, this is where the review process come into play. So basically, yes, now we detect and we review, we trigger the escalation. It can be escalated to internal review if required. So that's called review, and then act upon it. So the whole idea is, if you see hallucination point, and then you review it and you act upon it, basically you go and change the system prompt, and then we track it. So going back, how did you try to mitigate or reduce this hallucination? We I'll tell you, this is our version, if I go by the version, 26th version of our system prompt. So we did an iteration of system prompt, so called prompt engineering in the system level, to reduce the hallucination as much as possible to a level that we are confident. Now our AI is giving up to 96% of accuracy. Again, there's no silver bullet for us.
Mm.
This is why I think you and I was talking about, there's an iteration process. The whole idea is, you have to start on it, and then go into because at the end of the day, you are not rely on the users, actual end users prompt. It's all about your system prompt. So build a strong system prompt based on your data that mitigate or reduce the hallucination, because do you know what then you can tell in the system prompt, if the user asks this, look at these kind of a documents. If the user asks this kind of a procedure, go to this kind of a video, because that was not naturally came to us, because there's no documentation of right system prompt engineering. There's I attended multiple programs. They tell you how to write the system, how to write the user prompt properly, but they never say how to program the chatbot itself, right? So going back, I think, possibly my recommendation is, work on the multiple iteration of the system prompt to reduce the hallucination. And then when you go into the multiple advanced system tools, because system doesn't know any out of the box platform you get, they don't know what hallucination to you, what is hallucination to me, because that's still training is required.
Yeah. So thank you for that answer, Sanjay. One of the things I want to again emphasize that I want to repeat that what you said is that this is the 26th iteration of the system prompt. So just because it's a Gen AI, just because it's a newer emerging technologies, doesn't mean you can leave out all of the software development process that you have. So you need to iterate over it. And this is the 26th iteration that you are having. One of the question on the chat is, I think you have answered it, is that how do you measure accuracy of the responses generated? And what you are saying is there is a feature within the application for the users to rate these responses. And then
Mhm.
that's how we will know whether this is right or wrong. So that's another point that I want to bring in is that even though Gen AI applications are seen more as, oh, this is a chat window, but there's a lot more that is happening within that particular chat window. Like, say, for example, earlier, if we would look at UI, a particular screen, there is a label field, there is a drop down field, there is a text box field, and so on and so forth. What are those UI elements in the chat interface? And when we look at it, it is not just I'm typing something and an answer is coming out. It is not just those two elements, but also giving that feedback, liking, I mean, thumbs up, thumbs down, so that the users can rate those responses. And the other element being, which is not seen, which is visible, what you touched upon is logging all of that responses so that somebody can go through it and review and rate it, and so on and so forth. So that's a whole bunch of newer elements that are coming in, right? So one of the other question that is coming in is, why did you use OpenAI API and not something else? So say for example, running your own model or a Claude or Gemini or any other aspect of it. I think we are thinking of making it as a multi-model, and also there is a possibility of using some other models as well. I want to talk about it. Why did you choose OpenAI, and what are your future plans on that particular using models and everything?
That's a great question. That's the exact same question I had in my mind, when we started this journey back in September and October, because there's no silver bullet again.
Yeah.
Every model do the different thing. So what we did was kind of a different. So basically, we had our use case, in this case, sales rep. And then I think I mentioned to you, we got 100 of different questions from the thing. And then, without doing a single change, no system prompt, just ingest those data to the multiple models.
Mm.
So I think, to the person in the audience that asked the question, at that time, again, this is 6 months ago. I'm very old now, right? 6 months ago, when we did that, we did not have a documentation, because I think, one of the things I'm very frustrated about our technology community, tech community, AI governance, and everybody do the AI benchmarking. But if you really look at who's doing the benchmarking, that's a big support of that particular model. There's no governance side of it, right? So you cannot really look at, okay, you go to Gartner, do the benchmarking or along the line, because at least for right now, there's no real benchmarking, because there's a bias to every single thing that people are doing, right? So what we did was we used those three models and we went on line by line, what is the hallucination percentage, what, very importantly, what was the cost of the token,
Mm,
when I ask the question, what is the output token going to cost me, right? And then we look into the governance side. Okay, I'll tell you, Gemini was not a front runner back in last year, October. He was, I don't think even is it was on the top five. I mean, when we really did the analysis, because they brought something called Brad at that time. Back in September, October, it was a disaster because nobody knew about it. So what we did was we even bring the OpenAI model alone plus OpenAI within Azure platform. Can we use the OpenAI through the Azure? So what we did was we feed the data. We haven't make up our mind. We were very open, and then getting the responses back, and then I'd say the cost was, if I put the top three, how we decided, the cost was one of the top factors. Then the second one is how easily we can adapt without a
mm,
huge learning curve. So OpenAI, very well structured at that time, and then they were the best in the way at that time, giving the contextual answers. And then the last but not least, we saw that a huge organization like Microsoft is backing it.
mm.
So that's the reason which there's again, as I said today, OpenAI is not on the top, Gemini is on the top. But I think for the audience, I don't think you need to be on the top. If you pick even the top three, top four, and build your use cases based on your requirement, this is a highly evolving uh, the field. And then I rightly what you said, Joseph, we didn't build this for OpenAI. We built an engine. Right now, our engine is OpenAI. If
Mm.
we decided this engine is not fast enough, we don't need to build the body of it. We just take the engine out, put another new engine in. So that's the mindset in my recommendation you should have. Yes, build something with something in mind, but don't stick to it.
Absolutely. So you touched upon these points that look at it probably from an outcome oriented perspective. Like, how can I go to market very quickly? And then, and these technologies are evolving very fast, rapidly. So you adapt your software development process also in such a way that these can be plugged and played and so on and so forth. Like as we are speaking, the open AI itself has changed that APIs. Like now it is response API that is happening. So it needs to be changed. So your software development has to be in an agile model, uh, even on a thinking and a architectural perspective, so that you can plug and play, change these APIs and everything. So which is good. And also you talked about the factors to determine or rather decide which model you should pick up. Very rightly, as you said, one of the things that we need to look at here is the input token cost, output token cost, and then pick any one of the models in the top four. You will not go wrong. And then the ecosystem over Microsoft is backing, what can go wrong kind of a stuff. So which is good. One of the question in the chat is, you talked about multiple iterations, 26 iterations you
Yeah.
have done. How do you determine one system prompt is working, it's okay? At what point in time you say, okay, now I need to go and change it, I need to go and
Mhm.
enhance it? So at what point, so what are those factors, like as you said about choosing a model, are there any factors that you would consider to say, you know this is how you need to look at it, and when it hits this, it's time for iteration? Any factors like that?
Absolutely. I think I'll give you the starting point. So basically, This was a very big shift in my mindset, about the system prompt. So basically, we ingest the data. That's the first thing in there. Say we start ingesting the data, and then when I ask the question, LLM is deciding what is output going to be based on the data. So yes, LLM is going to go and find the data, but the formatting of the response is what LLM thinks. I have no idea what it's doing. So basically, the way that we architecture, say that, how to clean a washroom, right? So basically it will, as an example, so it will go and find the washroom care program or whatnot, bring it, and then it architect in a way that LLM decide, okay, here's how to clean the washroom. Then with our business objectives, the customer that we are working on, I don't want LLM to decide that. I want to structure my own response. When someone asks a question, how to clean the washroom, I ask Mr. Customer, responds back, are you in a male washroom? Are you in a female washroom? Well, there's a big difference because in a male washroom you have the urinals, right? And then once they ask the question back, what type of flooring you have. So hopefully you can narrow it down. So remember, there's no system prompt. So I just ingest the data, get the LLM to LLM doesn't know anything about this, right? So my first version of the system prompt ask the multiple question until you
Mm.
know what you're doing. So the first iteration, right? The light bulb went off. Okay. Now, when I did that, it asking the repeated question. Yes, token cost in my mind. I didn't forget about it. But my whole idea is, how can I get the full information from the user and give it to LLM for the give the accuracy. So that's a version one of the system prompt. This is version two of the system prompt. Okay, now I get what type of washroom you're in, what type of the
Flow.
flow I have. So then now I get it now, but still that not enough, the answer I get, because now when I give the answer, should I tell, Mr. Customer, you need to clean the washroom uh, on these products? Absolutely not, because you need to tell where to start first. So if you can take those examples, so the thing is, I think the iteration of the prompts is not all about the responses. Very important. Yes, response is going to be part of it, but the whole idea is how do you want to contextualize the response you're giving. So within that system prompt, then you're going to say you're going to put the guardrails. As I said, do not answer these type of, don't accept any, violence. Don't get into the violence, the behavior. Be always, talk in a soft response. Be professional. Those are the general rule of thumbs on the system prompt. But I wanted to showcase where we at version number 26 today, because every single thing, we could not live with what LLM has given to us. We wanted to modify the output. When they give the product recommendation, we want in a table format. We cannot go and program LLM to give that. So it's a system prompt. So now we say if you get in a more than two columns, put into a column format. And then if it is in a hyperlink, just make it sure hyperlink. So I think those are the things I think you need to add for the audience, to think about. Again, remember, there's no set guidelines. There's so many documentation on how to do the proper prompt engineering side of it. You should learn it, you should think about it. But when it comes to your use case, think outside the box.
I think, as you've been saying, I think you need to evolve with a particular technology. You need to continue to test it out, and the challenge in this is that it is emerging, it is evolving. So, which means whatever that you have written today may or may not work tomorrow. So, you need to continue
Mhm.
to be on guard and to continue to be on top of this. But the advantage of this particular Gen AI technology is you can use it as an advisor for itself.
Yeah.
You can go and ask ChatGPT or a Gen AI, what prompt should I have if I want these kinds of output? And whatever it tells you, you can take that as a base and then you can build on top of it.
Yeah.
And you can use that technology itself. Unlike so many other technologies that have come in earlier, you can use this particular technology itself to implement that particular technology. So that's the recursion that we have, that
Which is
happens.
a good thing, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a good
absolutely.
thing. If you remember those days when we learned Java, Python, you write a function, but who's going to validate that?
Yeah.
And that's the part that you and I talked about. I think, one of the thing I really wanted that, there's so much bias out there that people think, Gen AI and AI taking developers' jobs.
Mm.
This is a conversation you and I had multiple. I think if you really think so, it's the other way around. The people that learn the technology will do more creative work than ever before, like your use case. The people are not adapting it might be fall behind.
Mm.
So I think the thing that I really what you said about is use the AI to test AI.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Simple
Uh,
as that.
yeah. One of the other question that has come in is uh, data privacy, and how do you comply with? There are so many other acts that are there, GDPR and other acts. Uh, so how do you comply? So on a larger scale, let's take this particular at a larger scale. Is that how do you address data privacy and any of these kinds of guardrails that you put in? So can you talk a little more about, especially the data privacy?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think this is one of the thing I think I'm proud of about our team is that when before we even start something, we build an AI platform. We wanted to build on a framework,
Mm,
governance framework. We being a sector and a certain organization, the privacy, the security was atmosphere. But the thing is, those things, the governance framework came after we build the application. But in this particular Gen AI use case, we wanted to do a little bit different. So basically, we picked the Nest AI framework. But again, that was the one available. I think there's no standard so far, but that's only one closest to a framework today. So what we did was, we why we did that, I think, in our business use case, is not about the value is not the answer that the AI gives. It's how accurate it is. And
mm,
then number one. Number two, are these confidential information, the privacy side of it, right? So what we did is we anchor our approach in this framework, which gives us a structured way to think about the reliability, fairness, and accountability across the entire life cycle. And then what we did was we framed it one in a GRC platform. We used Drata as our platform. So then our team, they have we gone through the policies? Have you read the policies? Do you know what the privacy means for the use case? All that. We embedded everything to GRC platform. We use Drata as a platform, so you don't need to look into every single day what this iteration about, right? So when it comes to the privacy, so one of the biggest thing is that's why we try to get the user's own data. So we ask the user to give us a consent that the data that you providing us, like it's yours. So that's with anywhere, like because we cannot go and check the validity of the data. So because we do a business, we want to be trust the people. So we get the consent. Are these data being it's your own, and then also we tell in that consent. We use the third party LLMs. We are not training the LLMs. We use the LLMs to give you the output you need. So but we make sure we do not transmit any PII data. We do not put any personal information. We do not put any location identified information. So we mask all that. We use LLM only to get the context out of it. So not any personal data. Then, so to answer your question, I think the first thing you should, anybody that in this audience looking for the privacy, get into a framework. What the framework is, because that NIST is already has about 179 pages, which you and I struggle to understand for quite a number of days, I would say weeks. Find a GRC platform, embedded them, go understand what the core components are, and then move from there. I think there's no, again, silver bullets in the Gen AI side. You heard of what's happening with the the OpenAI, Gemini. But I think, if you do the basics right, with your ethics,
Yeah.
don't share the personal information with any other model. I think that will set to the right foot forward.
Yeah. So I think the 2 points that you talked about, I want to again emphasize that is that there are no frameworks today that are there. So pick up what is already existing. Say, for example, like Nest, understand the core principles of it really well, and then port that to Gen AI, and then go and implement that. And if you do that, you are at a good fundamental level, and then on top of it, you can go and build it. The other one is the transparency. Like, I mean, it stands. It has been the case all along. So moving on, Sanjaya, some of the things that you already talked about. Now, if you were building, so whatever that you have learned, not just the 6 months, you have been playing around with it for quite a long time. 6 months, we have been building this particular application. And whatever you have learned so far, if you were to start today, if one of the audience is starting their product development today, what are the myths that you would debunk? What are the lessons you would tell them? Uh, what are the factors that you would ask them to consider in developing AI applications?
Great question. I'm going to go back to 6 months, but this looked like I haven't done my research. But again, I think this is why I wanted to emphasize throughout this webinar is that, it's a very, very rapidly evolving
Hmm.
technology. It goes, when you wake up tomorrow, there's a LLM model, right? So, but it's what I'm trying to tell my three biggest learning that stand out throughout the course. Again, I think these learnings are always come up at the inference stage, when you're trying to build a model that has not been existed. So it might not relate to you, but I want to let you know this because then you will relate that to your use cases today. So one of the thing is, firstly, don't start with the tech, start with the
Hmm.
use case. The reason is that I had the use case in mind when we developing it. We want to do the search term, but I spent almost a month to figuring it out what tech to use. OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, which I mentioned, right? So the thing is, because I wasn't sure what model works the best, so I spent quite a number of hours, spent not hours, days or weeks figuring it out. You're laughing, how struggle that it was rating them. And then I think, but the good thing is we had the use cases, we had those 100 questions. So we had the use cases, but I wasn't exploring the use case enough because my struggle was to pick the tech technically. And then the other thing I would say, the second biggest lesson is the be proactive with the cost.
Hmm.
So you said that, at the beginning, in the middle of the conversation, we used the OpenAI Assistant API at the beginning, which was the latest model back in October last year, right? And then was it the most cost effective? No, because they have the GPT-3 because the problem is there's a hallucination, all that. But I picked the model that more reasonable. But now later I found out back in March this year, they say they sunset in the assistant API, and then now they're going to the responses API. So, but the good thing is, I didn't keep a good track on the cost side of it, but now when it comes to the commercialization, that's a very big impact because it's all about how you monetize it. And then the last thing, but not least, talk to people because I think one of the biggest thing I learned is that exposing myself to other peers, other groups, attending these peer conferences. The reason is that what you're trying to build, someone else has might have built it, and they gone through the pain that you have gone through. Ask the question, because that amount of time and money you spend, you will never get back. I tell you,
Hmm.
because for I'm being with Optisol for over 5 years now. Right now, I think this year, the last year was the most because of the various reasons. Most I was occupied learning more from the peers because because this is a new technology, right? I don't have a lot of band. Yes, I come with the 25 years of experience in software engineering, but I don't have the background of the AI, at least learning of it. So get that. Personal, I think as I said, personal level, you will get to multiple frustrations. This doesn't work, this doesn't work. get the AI work for you. Tell that you're frustrated with AI. You will be surprised how they're going to respond to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, okay, here we are. Like, I mean, we have built this application. What's next? How are you planning to? What are the tech features that you are doing? What are the business features you are doing? What's next?
If you take our business, I think, in the future of the Gen AI in B2B moving from information. So right now we are moving from information to operational.
Hmm.
From a something you ask, something you act upon. That's the biggest shift I think, in our industry will change in the next 6 months. Gen AI, I think it's all year old. I'll be honest with you. It's year old. Uh, but now can we build something that can act upon, right? Our platform, started with a sales enablement tool. Now it became a business enablement tool. We are expanding into onboarding support to partner training and whatnot. What I see in the future is a multimodal intelligence. So as example, it will not only just respond to a text, but it can see. Remember that I talked about my son's piano lesson. I was freaked out a little bit. What it can do is basically, it not responding to text, it can also see, and then it can give you the guidance real time. So I think the most exciting part of it is there are a lot of models out there that you can test it out yourself. I don't think there's a cost involvement in it. So you ask me in the future, I'm going to repeat myself. Multimodal intelligence is going to be the future for the next 6 months, in my opinion.
Okay. Uh, so before we close, Sanjaya, one of the questions that was also asked, and then maybe a brief answer. Would you consider hosting models locally, or would you consider always these kinds of models like Gemini's and OpenAI? Any thoughts on that?
I think it's based on the use case. So I think that's a very good question that we also put in. The thing is, from our use case is, we wanted to go to the market fast.
Hmm.
You wanted to go to the trusted store. For you to build and host locally might, going back to the governance side of the privacy side of it, it's an enormous task. I would, in my opinion, with the, so there's no right or wrong answer for that question. It's depending on your use case. So in my use case, it was very clear. Go to market fast, get something trusted, get something verified, security cost, right? So that's why we call it a closed box LLM. OpenAI, Gemini, those are closed by. But then if your use case is more into the privacy side of it, because remember that I said I had to use a 26 version of a system prompt to see what it is. If your client use case is more about the privacy, the security side, then I think it might make sense to go to the open source LLM that can host in your own, because what data being tracked, what data being ingested, and everything about it. But the cost that you're spending to manage that versus something out there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a fantastic way, or rather, at the time to stop this particular one. Sanjay, thank you so much for taking the time to answer all of these questions. And you have correctly structured the factors. When should you consider hosting an LLM, and how should you evaluate? So for all of that, you had a very structured approach. So thank you for sharing all of that structured approach with us today, Sanjay.
No, thank you. This is very, very good. Thank you for having me. And then thank you for your cooperation. And then, thank you, audience, for joining the call as well. Appreciate it.
Wishing you and Optisolve all the best as we move along in this GenAI journey, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for spending your time with us today. I hope you found this session insightful and that it sparked few ideas you can take back to your own teams. If something stood out to you, I would appreciate if you could share the takeaways on LinkedIn and tag us. We would love to keep the conversation going beyond this particular webinar. And if you haven't already, follow us on LinkedIn for more updates, use cases, behind the scene stories like this. And we will continue this particular webinar series, so you can attend the future webinars also. Thanks again. See you next time.